Hello students, welcome to TSAT. Welcome to the class on Indian polity and constitution. As you all know, we have started Indian polity and constitution Tspsc Group 1 Prelims series. As part of the series, let us continue with another topic of Indian polity and constitution. Today, our topic is emergency provisions. Emergency provisions are discussed in part 18 of the Constitution. Part 18 of the Constitution. Part 18 discuss three types of emergencies from Article 352 to 360. So there are three types of emergencies discussed in part 18 of the Constitution. The first one being the national emergency. The second one being the state emergency. See, the state emergency is also called president rule. And the third one being the financial emergency. Financial emergency. Article 352 specifically deals with national emergency. Article 356 deals with the state emergency or president rule, and Article 360 deals with financial emergency. Now, before continuing to the objective type related questions with respect to emergency provisions, let us understand why emergency provisions has been inserted in the Indian Constitution. See, emergency as part of or emergency in the eyes of the Constitution is something where the system of the government is not following the Constitution of India. Because of few reasons, it is very difficult for the institutions, the system of government and other related aspects of the Constitution to not to follow the Constitution of this country. There are certain circumstances which make the government not to follow the provisions of the Constitution, and that is called emergency with respect to the Constitution of India. Now, Constitution has recognized these type of circumstances where it will be difficult for the government to not follow the aspects of the Constitution. Recognizing that, the Constitution has come up with few provisions on the functionary or mechanism of the government at the time of the emergency. The Constitution ensures that the government in the future follow the Constitution as usual again. To simply put it, when the government loses the track and go offside, loses its track, the emergency provisions make sure the government is on track again. Government is the system which has to follow the Constitution and work in this country. So this is some explanation or introductory to why the emergency provisions has been inserted in the Constitution. To take the class forward, now let us see some important expected concept based questions related to emergency provisions in India. Look at the first question here. As I keep on telling you this, our intention with these questions is to make you understand two things. One, how the question can be asked in your exam. Two, how the subject can be framed as a question. So whenever you read any subject, any topic, you should be able to visualize the question, the prelims based question with respect to Tspsc exam. Now look at the question, friends. It says, consider the following and choose the correct statement. See, these keywords are very important. You need to round up it. Consider the following and choose the correct statement. Okay. There are two statements given. National emergency, the state emergency and financial emergency are proclaimed and revoked by the President of India on his will. See, this is a keyword. It says the national emergency, the state emergency or the financial emergency is proclaimed or removed, is initiated or removed by the President of India. Absolutely correct. Yes, the President of India proclaims or revoke any type of emergencies, but on his own, on his will, as per his pleasure is wrong, because the President of India has the authority to proclaim the national emergency or any type of emergency only on the advice given by the government. Only on the advice of the government of India. And even to revoke the emergencies, national emergency can be revoked. National emergency can be revoked when a resolution is passed in Lok Sabha. Secondly, the state and the financial emergency can be removed or revoked by the President on the advice given by the advice of the government. On the advice of the government. Let me repeat this again for you all. Point number 1. All three types of emergencies can be proclaimed by President on the advice of the government of India. Clear. Point number 2. The national emergency can be revoked by the President of India only when a resolution is passed in Lok Sabha. The state emergency and financial emergency can be revoked by the President only when an advice given by the government. Now I hope this is clear. So this is a wrong statement. Why? On his will is wrong. Now look at this. Till now, national emergency is proclaimed 3 times in India. Absolutely correct. Answer is B. Now can anyone tell me which year's national emergency has been proclaimed till now? Yes, there are 3 times. 1962, 1971, 1975. National emergency is proclaimed in India till now 3 times. 1 in 1962, India-China war. 2, 1971, India-Pakistan war. 1975, internal disturbances. So this is your first question. Consider the following and choose the correct statement. National emergency, once proclaimed by the President, has to be approved by both the houses of the Parliament. Article 360 deals with financial emergency. Very easy question. Try to guess the answer. Let me explain this. After the proclamation of national emergency by the President of India, right, you need to understand two things with regards to the continuation and proclamation of the national emergency. The national emergency can be proclaimed by the President of India only when there is a written notice, only when there is a written notice signed by the cabinet is sent to the President. Meaning, the President proclaims the national emergency only when he receives a written notice signed by the cabinet. The cabinet will send a written notice only when there are any of the three conditions satisfied to proclaim the national emergency. Meaning, there are three grounds, three conditions when a national emergency can be proclaimed. One, war. The second one is external aggression. The third one is armed rebellion. Armed rebellion is also called internal aggression. If any of these three conditions are satisfied, or if all three conditions are satisfied, the cabinet will send a written notice to the President, and President must proclaim the national emergency. Okay. Now, President has proclaimed the national emergency. Now tell me, till when it will be continued? What is the process of its continuity? Whenever the President proclaims the national emergency, the national emergency to be continued, it has to be approved by both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha with a 2/3 majority. Only then it will be continued. Once Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha approves it, once Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha approves it, the emergency continues for 6 months. Every 6 months, there should be a renewal done in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. In this way, the national emergency, which is renewed every 6 months, is continued for indefinite period. So the answer is, the first one is correct. The second one is very easy, you all know. In case of a financial instability in the country, the President has the authority to proclaim the financial emergency under Article 360. So the answer is C. The answer is C. Which article of the Constitution deals with state emergency? What an easy question this is, because this is explained just before. 352, 356, 358, 360. Look at the screen. Let us decode all the articles. Now, what is Article 352? Article 352 talks about national emergency. It talks about national emergency. Article 356 talks about state emergency or president rule. So the answer is B. Now, what is Article 360? Financial emergency. Financial emergency. Now coming to what is Article 358. Very, very important for the exam. According to Article 358, whenever national emergency is in force, whenever national emergency is in force, fundamental right guaranteed under Article 19 is automatically suspended. Fundamental rights guaranteed under Article 19 is, see, this word is important, automatically suspended. Now, what is the meaning of Article 19 is automatically suspended? There is no protection to Article 19 under Article 32. If any citizen lost this Article 19, you cannot go to Supreme Court under Article 32, or you cannot go to High Court under Article 226. It doesn't mean that Article 19 is not there. Article 19 will be there, which gives right to freedom of speech and expression, or right to movement, or right to reside and settle anywhere in the country, or right to form associations, or right to assemble peacefully, or right to start any occupation, etc. All these rights under Article 19 will be there, but the protection to Article 19 will be lost according to Article 358 if national emergency is imposed. So this is your discussion. Very, very important question. These type of questions are expected. I want everyone to understand the question properly. See, there is a famous case on president rule called 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗧 case. Now, 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗧 case was happened in 1994. 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗧 case is related to Karnataka, is related to president rule. Now, Supreme Court gave some guidelines on using Article 356 as a tool by the union government. Before looking at the question, let me also tell you, in 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗧 case, Supreme Court has made the concept of secularism as part of basic structure doctrine. You will ask you, in which case Supreme Court inserted secularism as part of basic structure of the Constitution? Answer is 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗧 case of 1994. Now look at the options. 1. The burden lies on the center to prove that relevant reasons exist to justify the imposition of the president rule. Okay. The state legislative assembly should be dissolved only after the parliament has approved the presidential proclamation. Okay. The state government pursuing anti-secular politics is liable to actions under Article 356. Firstly, let me reveal the answer, then explain this. Answer is C. All these are said by Supreme Court in 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗧 case. Look at the first one. See, whenever an emergency is imposed in the country, the federal character of this country will automatically turn towards unitary in nature without any amendment. Center attains more powers when emergency is proclaimed. To show the hegemony over the states, to show that hegemonic character over the states, the center misused, I am using this word because Supreme Court also used, the center misused Article 356 many times. Because Article 356 has been misused many times by the center against the state, 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗧 or 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗧 case came with certain guidelines. The first one it says is, see, whenever the center imposes the president rule, they have to justify the reason. Without any justification, you can't directly, to satisfy your ego, cannot impose. Point number 1. Point number 2. When state emergency is imposed, the president can dissolve the assembly. But 𝗧𝗧𝗏𝗧 case said, after president proclamation, you cannot dissolve the assembly. It has to be approved by Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. with simple majority. When Lok Sabha Rajya Sabha approves it, only then the president can dissolve the assembly. Thirdly, if any state government is pursuing anti-secular elements, then the union can impose Article 356. Very, very important for your exam. Try to understand this. I have more reading on SR Bommai case. This is expected. National emergency remains in operation with the approval of Parliament for a period of. Look at the screen. I told you before, let me tell you again. As per Article 352, the President of India has the authority to proclaim the national emergency when the President receives a written notice signed by the Cabinet. Now, the Cabinet will send a written notice in case of a war or external aggression or armed rebellion. I just told you this. After the President proclamation of the national emergency, the emergency continues when both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha accept it by 2/3 majority. When Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha accept the national emergency, the emergency continues for 6 months. To continue further for 6 months, a fresh resolution has to be accepted by Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha again. It can be renewed every 6 months, any number of times, till indefinite period, till it is removed. Meaning, once the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha approves it, the emergency continues for 6 months. Answer is up to 6 months, maximum period of 6 months. Answer is C. Why did I say maximum period of 6 months or up to 6 months? Because within this 6 months, it can be revoked. It can be revoked by President of India. The emergency can be revoked by the President of India. That is what I mean. Now, maximum of 6 months. Now, just to understand, let me tell you one more point. The national emergency, with the help of the renewal, it can be continued for indefinite period. Every 6 months, it has to be renewed. The state emergency, maximum 3 years, maximum. Okay. Financial emergency, once approved, indefinite period. Once approved, indefinite period. No renewal is also needed every 6 months. Indefinite period, automatically indefinite period. Which of the following is or are true? Okay, let's try to understand. Just before I told, the maximum period for the president rule is 3 years. Okay. President rule will continue beyond 1 year if national emergency is in operation. Both the statements are correct. Now, you need to understand this. When president rule is imposed in any state, the maximum it can be continued is up to 3 years. But 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 1978 has introduced a provision, and the provision is, for state emergency or president rule to continue beyond 1 year, there shall be national emergency or in operation. There shall be national emergency in operation in the country. According to 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978, only when the national emergency is in operation beyond 1 year, the state emergency can be continued more than 1 year and maximum up to 3 years. If national emergency is not in operation, the state emergency cannot be continued beyond 1 year. This is the point you need to understand. Not only that, let me also tell you one more point. After President proclaimed the national emergency, state emergency, it will be continued only if Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha accept it. When Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha accept it, like a national emergency, even state emergency continues for 6 months. Every 6 months, there should be a renewal. In this way, it cannot be continued beyond 3 years. Every 6 months, renewal, maximum 3 years. But after 1 year, if the state emergency to be continued, the national emergency must be in operation. That is a point. Okay. This is your answer. Both 1 and 2 are correct. Which of the following statements is or are correct? Okay. Try to understand this. During national emergency, the life of the Lok Sabha may be extended for 1 year at a time. Okay. Fundamental rights under Article 19 can be suspended automatically in case of national emergency. Both the statements are correct. Now look at the screen. Look at the first one. Whenever national emergency is imposed, the normal term of the Lok Sabha can be extended by 1 year, meaning 5 years can become 6 years. Not only Lok Sabha, even the state legislative assembly can be extended by 1 year by parliament, meaning the Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly can be extended by 1 year, and this can be renewed till the emergency is in force, meaning every time it can be renewed by 1 year till the emergency is in force. Whenever the national emergency ceases to operate, within 6 months, there should be elections. This is your first point. Look at the second point. 2 articles you need to remember for the exam. The first one is Article 358. The second one is Article 359. According to Article 358, fundamental right guaranteed under Article 19 is automatically suspended in case of national emergency in India. Okay, this is a very easy statement. Fundamental right guaranteed under Article 19 is automatically suspended in case of national emergency. Now, what about 359? Listen to me very carefully. Except Article 20 and Article 21. Except these 2 articles, other fundamental rights can be suspended by a presidential order. The President by a presidential order has the authority to suspend other fundamental rights except 20 and 21 in case of national emergency in force as per Article 359. Okay, very, very important for the exam. Look at the article. Guess the article. The question is guess the article. That says that whenever a state fails to comply with or to give effect to any direction from the center, it will be lawful for the President to hold that a situation has arisen in which the government of the state cannot be carried or in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. See, these all are internal articles, internal provisions. Try to understand. This statement says, whenever the state is not compliance with the center, the president has the right to take an action. One of the action is president rule. This president rule is discussed in Article 356. This is an action oriented thing. But this statement doesn't talk about president rule. It says when the state is not following the center, the president can take an action according to Article 365. The answer is 365, not 356, because 356 talks about state emergency, 352 national emergency. So this is very important. This is very important. Consider the following and choose the correct statement. Article 20 and 21 cannot be suspended in case of national emergency. You all know this is correct. President can suspend or dissolve the state legislative assembly in case of president rule. Very, very important. This is also correct. Many people think that president only can dissolve the assembly. No, he can also suspend for a temporary period. Okay, the answer is C. So these are few questions in related to emergency provisions. Keep learning these important MCQs for the exam. Try to make notes, try to make points, and every question is important. Happy learning. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.